Hello and welcome to this tutorial on modern Reese bass using Phase Plant by Kilohertz. My name is Sephiros and welcome to the stream. So if you don't know what a Reese sounds like, it sounds like this. Okay, so that's old school Reese. Two detuned waves. It can be any wave. And now there is a very characteristic signature here. If we look on the spectrum, hear how the sub is going up and down in volume. Now watch what happens when I shift pitch. So you can see that the speed of the pitch wobble in the sub is dependent on the pitch. And so oftentimes one will tune their Reese bass to a specific amount of detune to fit the track in terms of what rate that wobble is happening. So watch, if I detune it, it's gonna wobble at a different speed. Right, so just a quick aside, just to clear up that first fact. So with a modern Reese bass, this isn't really going to sound the same. It's going to be using wavetables. So I'm going to make a wavetable here to emulate that pitch movement or that speed. So really what's happening here is it's wobbling between two different harmonics, and there are specific harmonics that are being wobbled between. So hold on. Let me go back here for a second and do a group, mute this group, do an analog with an output. All right, so I don't know if we'll be able to see this on the spectrum. It's hard to tell, but as the fundamental goes down in volume, the third harmonic there, or whatever second harmonic there, is going up in volume. So they're like inversely wobbling. So how we can recreate that with a wavetable without getting that sour sound is pretty simple. So I'm going to go into the wavetable editor here, and I'm going to select the whole thing, and then I'm going to just do a sine wave. Click done. All right, so now we have a sine wave, right? And then we want to go to a different harmonic. It can be any harmonic. I'm a big fan of the third harmonic, but usually in a Reese, it's wobbling between, like as it cancels itself out, it almost sounds like it's going like an octave up or whatever. So let's try a few different things, and actually we can build a few different things into this wavetable. So let's go here to the second harmonic, and notice how the phase rotation is different. Watch what happens as I rotate the phase. we can actually maximize the amount of loudness. See how that's more leveled off? That's actually gonna like psychoacoustically sound louder because it's staying farther away from the zero crossing for longer. Don't worry about understanding that right now. That's a totally different tutorial, but what I can do now is just remove the first harmonic. Okay, so then we can also access the good old third harmonic right here. And the phase rotation is probably important here, but I'm not going to worry about it too much. This is just an experiment. I haven't done this for a while, but this is kind of how I like to do it. So then let's go for the fourth harmonic. Right, so we have some different harmonics here, and then I'm just going to blend, boom, boom, and boom. Now notice how I chose to have the higher harmonics quieter. I did that because of the Fletcher-Munson curve. Higher pitches are actually perceived to be louder than lower pitches, when in reality they're the same loudness. So what I mean by that is, like, you could have a sine wave playing at a low D at 40 hertz, at like 10 dB, say, and then listen to 4 octaves up the same D at 10 dB. That 4 octaves up is actually going to sound way louder to us because our ears are more sensitive in the higher registers, but scientifically the note is still 10 dB. So if you take that into consideration in sound design, you can achieve like a similar loudness in the perceived loudness, and that you can take that into consideration when you EQ stuff or whatever. But anyways, now we can wobble this and get kind of a similar result. Now understand that this is just a sine wave right now, so I'm going to play a higher note. What happens with this? So we get that pulsing like in with a Reese. So what's cool about this is now you can actually choose what kind of shape to use for this wobble. And then if you want it to track, what you want to do is grab the note plugin and map it to the speed. And then you can get that similar vibe where if you glide between notes, the speed changes. So that's pretty cool. Now, for this modern Reese bass, I'm going to use Distortion to create these upper harmonics. So what I'm going to do is grab a Distortion. I think a lot of people have Trash. So I'm going to put the Trash before the EQ in a rack. And this is very, very important to put it before the EQ, because we want the Trash to get that sub when we're playing a sub. Right? So this kind of movement here, you can see that for some reason, and I don't know why this is, but Faceplant creates weird upper harmonics that are too quiet to hear, but once you start distorting, it will bring that out. So what I just did was like a little low pass filter in the editor, and I feel like that might fix it. No, it's still there. I have no idea why that is. It's very disturbing, but we can mitigate that with a Pro Q. That's kind of unfortunate. See, so we can kind of EQ that out. I don't think it'll be too much of an issue. So now we can use some wave folding or overdrive or whatever you want, and you can get tons of different character this way. So I'm going to just start driving this. So you can see, once I start doing this wave shaping, it's really affecting the loudness of that sine wave for the sub. So what I'm going to do here is make sure that we're doing a parallel split. So create a chain. Now the sine wave is going through, or the sub faceplant is going through clean. And then we can also have our trash chain, and then with this Pro Q in the trash chain, remove the sub. So now we can control the gain of the top bass separately, and we don't have to worry about messing our sub up because our sub's coming through clean. So the cool thing about this is that, like I said, you can control the shape. So it gives us a lot more flexibility than if we were using two detuned waves. So in the track, you can then get your cool rhythm without having to worry about dealing with two detuned waves. just playing around with little corpus. I wasn't really getting the sweet spot there, but we can inject a little bit of maybe a little bit of filtering now. So I'm actually just going to use the Pro Q, because I think the Pro Q is a really clean filter, but it can be very nice for this kind of thing. So I'm going to just group it and macro up a couple things. So first we can have a peak here, and if I can configure both of the frequencies, you can see I can map these both to the same knob. And what's cool about this is you can then click on this bell and actually have it be dynamic. And so what that's going to let me to do is have kind of a auto adjust on the Q of a filter. Which is really nice, because then you can really boost this thing and it'll kind of like attenuate itself. So that's pretty neat. I like to have this actually open and just make it like mini. That way I can see where this is. So I'm kind of just going to listen to that wobble that we have going and kind of play with it. Okay, so now let's get another peak going, and I am also going to make this dynamic reduction peak and boost it up, and then configure frequency, boom, map to macro 2. Okay, so now we have a little bit of dual peak action going on. So I can it helps to actually expand this range too. So yeah. So sometimes I actually just like to control 4 to turn the grid off and then just draw some stuff in. So next, filter peak, back to medium, configure frequency, boom, mapped macro 3. So now we have 2 peaks and a valley, and the valley I'm going to dip down quite a bit. And now I can kind of play around with this. Okay, so now that we have a bunch of movement going on in the filter, it's going to react a lot to distortion with the sub. So I'm actually going to put another distortion like after this top bass sums with the clean sub. Let's listen to that. So now I'm going to group all of that stuff. And then in parallel, I'm going to put another phase plant. And actually, I'm going to duplicate our patch because I could use that. So then here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep this same sub, right? But I'm going to set it to not have an output. Or we'll set it to lane 1 and then mute lane 1. And then what I'm going to do is create a group and a noise and a filter and another filter and an output. And I'm going to put one on high pass, one on low pass, and 2 slope, kind of like that, and something like that. And then what I'm going to do here is create a noise top for that nice bass by taking the output and modulating the level. So we get this kind of rattlesnake effect. And then I'm going to map the gain of that noise to macro 1. So you can see we have this wobble here. We could actually affect the gain of the noise a little bit too. And the reason I did this in a different patch instead of just putting the noise in that same old patch is that I can actually just start to change this and control it differently. So I'm going to map a macro to the high pass and another macro to the low pass. That way when I turn this up, it low passes it. When this high pass, label it so I can tell what it is. And then we can start to add this into the patch. So we could maybe wobble the stereo amount. So now whatever changes we make to this initial trash preset or whatever distortion you choose are going to have a pretty drastic result on the overall sound. So let's play around with that a little bit. Cool, so sorry about clipping OBS. That probably all sounded horrible. But try out the technique. You should be able to get the technique and try it out. So yeah, you don't necessarily need all these fancy plugins like ProQ and Newfangled and whatnot. You can totally do this with just Ableton stuff. But having that wavetable is really useful. And you can just easily make that wavetable and create some cool modulation. There's a lot more to this technique that I could get into, like for instance, duplicating this again, duplicating this patch again, and then doing something like going up a couple harmonics with this. could like put this inside here. Oh, sorry. Group this phase plant and then put this inside here. That way it's going to go through that distortion chain along with the sub. Oh, that was the wrong patch there. This one is what I meant to do. So yeah, you can get more melodic sound that way. You hear a lot of that cool like secondary oscillator in the high register stuff, in a lot of kind of like what's that guy's name? I'm really tired right now, so I can't think of it, but yeah, a lot of more modern D&B stuff. But yeah, anyways, I hope this gives you some inspiration on how to make some cool modern Reese bass. Don't forget the noise rattlesnake layer. That thing really slaps. Really helps with the definition and giving it that kind of cohesive full spectrum. And then don't forget to kind of dip out some of these mids, you know, really let that high stuff sing. And yeah, until next time, I'm Sephiroth. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, all that BS, and come back. I'll be doing more of this stuff. All right. Big up. Peace.